The observation deck of the Meridian's edge buzzed with the chittering conversations of a dozen species, their translators creating a symphony of overlapping voices. Captain Sarah Chen stood near the massive viewport, watching the swirling nebula beyond while absently scratching behind the ears of the small orange tabby perched on her shoulder. I still cannot fathom why humans insist on dragging these useless creatures across the galaxy, Ambassador Zethkar commented, his reptilian features twisted in what passed for amusement among his people. The tall Vorthak gestured dismissively at Mochi, who responded by fixing the alien with an unblinking green stare. Commander Veltar of the Crystalline Collective added her harmonic voice to the conversation. The energy expenditure alone is illogical. Food, medical care, environmental controls, all for a creature that serves no tactical or strategic purpose. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. Mochi's earned her place on my crew. Earned? The insectoid science officer Clickth's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had learned was laughter. By what measure? Can it repair hull breaches, navigate quantum storms, process diplomatic protocols? She's good company, Sarah replied simply, earning another round of alien amusement. Dr. Halix, the station's ethereal medical officer, floated closer on his anti-gravity field. Fascinating. Human emotional dependency on inferior species remains one of your kind's most puzzling evolutionary artifacts. On my home world, we eliminated such inefficiencies millennia ago. Mochi yawned, revealing sharp white teeth, then settled more comfortably on Sarah's shoulder. The casual display of contentment only seemed to amuse the aliens further. Look at it, Zethkar hissed softly. So fragile, so soft. What possible survival advantage could such a creature possess? It appears to do nothing but consume resources and occupy space. Earth's biosphere must be remarkably gentle to produce such delicate organisms, Veltar harmonized thoughtfully. No natural predators, abundant food sources, stable climate. Sarah bit back her response. These beings, for all their advanced technology and supposed intelligence, had clearly never bothered to research Earth's actual ecosystem. They saw Mochi's relaxed demeanor and immediately assumed weakness, never considering what kind of world would shape a species into perfect hunters that could also curl up in a sunbeam. Perhaps, she said carefully, appearances can be deceiving. The aliens exchanged what passed for knowing looks among their various species. To them, Sarah's comment only confirmed their assessment. Humans were sentimental creatures who attributed imaginary qualities to their pets to justify an irrational emotional attachment. As the group continued their tour of the research station, none of them noticed how Mochi's ears swiveled constantly, tracking sounds beyond human hearing, or how her pupils dilated slightly as they passed the sealed containment sectors. The little predator was doing exactly what millions of years of evolution had designed her to do, gathering information about her environment and cataloging potential threats. She just made it look adorable. 3 hours later, the station's emergency claxons shattered the peaceful atmosphere of the diplomatic quarters. Sarah jolted awake in her assigned berth, instantly alert as red warning lights bathed the corridor in pulsing crimson. Mochi had been curled against her chest, but the cat was already on her feet, tail bristled and ears flat against her skull. "All personnel to emergency stations," came the synthesized voice of the station's AI. "Containment breach in research. Lab 7. Silkfang specimen has escaped primary enclosure. This is not a drill." Sarah's blood turned cold. She'd read the briefings on Silkfangs during her journey to the station, apex predators from the jungle world of Kepler 442b with adaptive camouflage, retractable venom fangs, and enough raw speed to outmaneuver most security drones. The research team had supposedly been studying one in perfectly secure containment. the corridor filled with panicking aliens as Sarah emerged from her quarters, Mochi now riding her customary position on the captain's shoulder. Ambassador Zethkar's scales had paled to a sickly yellow-green, while Commander Veltar's crystalline form flickered with stressed light patterns. "How did this happen?" Zethkar demanded of Dr. Helix, who came floating down the corridor with several other researchers trailing behind him. "The creature appears to have secreted an acid compound we hadn't detected in our initial scans," the ethereal replied, his usual calm demeanor cracked with obvious fear. "It dissolved through the containment field generators and the backup barriers. Security estimates we have perhaps 15 minutes before it reaches the inhabited sections." 15 minutes? Veltar's harmonic voice hit several discordant notes. "The evacuation pods can't cycle that quickly, and our security forces are trained for pirates and smugglers. Not that thing." Sarah pulled up the station schematics. On her wrist display, her mind automatically shifting into tactical mode. The research lab was 6 levels down, with 3 possible routes to the residential areas. Standard protocol would be to seal the blast doors and wait for specialized containment teams, but those were hours away. "What about the emergency suppression systems?" she asked. Dr. Helix's form dimmed further. "Designed for fires and atmospheric breaches, not biological threats. The Silkfang's exoskeleton can withstand direct plasma fire, and its speed makes targeting nearly impossible. We're effectively defenseless." Around them, the station's diverse population scrambled in barely controlled panic. Some sealed, themselves in their quarters, others rushed toward the evacuation bays, and a few simply stood frozen in terror. Sarah had seen this before. The moment when superior technology and careful planning met the brutal unpredictability of organic evolution. Mochi, however, remained perfectly still on Sarah's shoulder, her green eyes focused on something only she could perceive. Her nostrils flared slightly, processing scents that the station's air recycling system was carrying from the lower levels. For just a moment, something primal flickered behind those deceptively sweet eyes. Something that remembered stalking prey through tall grass, remembered the satisfaction of a successful hunt. "Captain Chen," Zethkar said urgently, "surely your vessel has weapon systems that could—" "My ship's docked 3 levels away," Sarah interrupted. "And even if I could reach it, firing plasma cannons inside a space station isn't exactly advisable." The klaxons suddenly changed pitch, and the AI's voice returned with an update that sent fresh waves of terror through the assembled aliens. "Silkfang has breached research-level containment. Estimated arrival at residential level 1 in 12 minutes. All security personnel report to Checkpoint Alpha for immediate assignment." As the crowd began to disperse in renewed panic, Sarah noticed that Mochi had begun to purr, a low rumbling, sound that seemed oddly out of place given the current crisis. The emergency command center buzzed with frantic activity as station personnel tried to coordinate a response to the unprecedented threat. Holographic displays showed the Silkfang's progress through the lower levels, a terrifying blur of motion that appeared on sensors for mere seconds before vanishing again, leaving behind only destroyed equipment and acid-scarred bulkheads. Sarah stood at the tactical display with the other senior personnel, Mochi still perched calmly on her shoulder, despite the chaos around them. The cat's behavior had become increasingly strange over the past few minutes. Her pupils were fully dilated, her breathing had shifted to a different rhythm, and she kept making small, almost inaudible chirping sounds. "The creature is displaying remarkable intelligence," reported Science Officer Clicketh, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. "It's systematically destroying sensor nodes and communication relays as it advances. This is not random predatory behavior. This is strategic." Commander Veltar's crystalline form flickered with stressed patterns. "Our security teams report no success in establishing visual contact. The adaptive camouflage makes tracking impossible. And its speed." She trailed off as another report came in of destroyed defensive positions. "Estimated time to residential levels?" Dr. Helix asked, though his dimmed luminescence suggested he already knew the answer. 8 minutes, came the grim response from the station's tactical officer. Maybe less if it finds the maintenance shaft routes. Ambassador Zethkar's scales had now shifted to a pale gray, the Vorthak equivalent of terror. My government will not accept the loss of their diplomatic corps to a containment failure. There must be something. He was interrupted by a new alarm. Motion detected in residential level 3 maintenance access, the AI announced. Silkfang has found an alternate route. Estimated arrival in residential level 1 reduced to 4 minutes. The command center erupted in fresh panic as aliens began abandoning their posts, some fleeing toward the evacuation bays, others sealing themselves into whatever fortified positions they could find. Sarah remained at the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities, when she felt something unexpected. Mochi had gone completely still. The little orange tabby sat frozen on Sarah's shoulder, every muscle tense, her ears swiveled forward, with laser focus. Her tail had stopped its usual gentle swaying and now held rigid, parallel to the floor. Most telling of all, she had stopped purring, replaced by something Sarah had rarely heard from her pet, a low, almost subsonic growl that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her chest. Mochi? Sarah whispered, turning to look at her companion. The cat's green eyes had changed. Gone was the relaxed, affectionate gaze Sarah knew so well. In its place was something ancient and utterly focused, the expression of a predator that had locked onto prey. Mochi's nostrils flared as she processed scents invisible to human perception, her head moving slightly as she tracked something through the station's ventilation system. Around them, the remaining command staff continued their increasingly desperate discussions about evacuation procedures and containment protocols, but Sarah found herself transfixed by her pet's transformation. This wasn't the lazy house cat who spent her days napping in warm spots and playing with toy mice. This was something else entirely, something that millions of years of evolution had crafted into a perfect hunter. Movement in Level 2 came another update. Silkfang approaching residential areas via primary corridor. Mochi's growl deepened, and for the first time in their 3 years together, Sarah felt a tiny thrill of uncertainty. She had always known, intellectually, that cats were predators, but seeing the transformation happening in real time, watching her beloved pet shed the veneer of domestication like an old coat, was both fascinating and slightly terrifying. The question that began forming in Sarah's mind was one that none of the panicking aliens around her would have thought to ask. What exactly had humanity brought aboard this station? The lights in residential level 1 flickered as the station's power grid rerouted energy to emergency systems. Sarah had taken position in the main corridor junction, ostensibly to help coordinate evacuation efforts, but really because something deep in her gut told her this was where she needed to be. Mochi remained on her shoulder, a coiled spring of focused predatory intent. Most of the alien dignitaries had sealed themselves in their quarters or fled to the supposedly secure command center, but a few stragglers still moved through the corridors, with desperate urgency. The station's AI had gone silent after reporting the Silkfang's entry into Level 2. Either the creature had destroyed the sensor network, or the command staff had abandoned their posts entirely. "Captain," came Ambassador Zethkar's voice through her communicator, "you must evacuate immediately. The creature could emerge from any access point. Your primitive pet will not protect you from—" The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by the sound of distant screaming. Sarah's enhanced hearing caught it first. A subtle change in the air circulation system, a whisper of movement in the walls around them. Mochi's response was immediate and dramatic. The small cat launched herself from Sarah's shoulder to the floor, landing in a perfect crouch with her back arched and every hair standing on end. Her tail had puffed to 3 times its normal size, and the low growl had transformed into something that made Sarah's primitive hindbrain scream warnings about apex predators. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows down the corridor, and it was in those shadows that Sarah first glimpsed their visitor. The Silkfang was exactly as the briefings had described, roughly the size of a large dog, but built like a nightmare fusion of spider and snake, with adaptive camouflage that made it seem to phase in and out of reality. Its most distinctive features were the retractable fangs that gave it its name. Two curved, hollow teeth that could extend from its upper jaw to deliver paralytic venom. What the briefings hadn't conveyed was the sheer presence of the thing, an aura of perfectly evolved lethality that made every instinct Sarah possessed scream at her to run. The creature moved with fluid grace despite its arthropod anatomy, flowing down the corridor like liquid death, while its camouflage shifted to match the walls and floor. But Mochi didn't run. Instead, the little orange tabby did something that defied every assumption the station's xenobiologists had made about Earth creatures. She advanced, not with the reckless charge of a prey animal in panic, but with the calculated precision of something that had been designed by evolution to kill things much larger than itself. Her movements became liquid, each step placed with perfect silence, despite the metal decking. Her pupils had expanded to capture every photon of available light, and her ears swiveled independently to track the Silkfang's position even when its camouflage made it nearly invisible. The Silkfang noticed the small creature approaching and seemed almost puzzled by the lack of fear. It had spent the last hour terrifying beings much larger than this tiny orange mammal, watching them flee in panic or freeze in terror. This was different. The two predators closed the distance between them with cautious steps, each recognizing something familiar in the other, the patient calculation of a hunter, the absolute confidence of a creature that had never doubted its place in the food chain. When they were roughly 3 meters apart, both animals went perfectly still. Sarah held her breath, realizing she was witnessing something unprecedented, a meeting between two apex predators from worlds separated by dozens of light years, each, the product of their respective planets' evolutionary arms race. The Silkfang had the advantages of size, armor, and venom, but Mochi had something else entirely. The accumulated hunting wisdom of millions of feline generations, compressed into 8 pounds of deceptively adorable fur and fury. The attack, when it came, was almost too fast for human eyes to follow. The aftermath was almost surreal in its contrast to the violence that had preceded it. Where moments before two apex predators had clashed in a display of evolutionary perfection, now there was only silence and the soft sound of rhythmic grooming. Mochi sat in a patch of filtered starlight from the observation window, calmly cleaning her paws with the methodical precision that cat owners knew well. Beside her lay the Silkfang, not dead but unconscious, its formidable form curled into what looked almost like a sleeping position. A small puncture wound behind what passed for its ear leaked a thin trickle of clear fluid. Sarah stared at the scene, her mind struggling to process what she had witnessed. The battle itself had lasted perhaps 30 seconds. A blur of motion as the Silkfang's size and reach advantages met Mochi's superior agility and tactical thinking. The cat had used the corridor's geometry against her opponent, turning the alien's charge into an opportunity to get behind its defenses and deliver a precise bite to the neural cluster that her predator instincts had somehow identified. "Status report." Commander Veltar's harmonic voice echoed through the corridor as the crystalline being appeared at the junction, flanked by a squad of security personnel. "We detected seismic activity and—" She stopped mid-sentence, her light patterns shifting to confused blue-white as she processed the scene before her. Ambassador Zethkar emerged from behind the security team, his scales still pale with fear. "Captain Chen, thank the void you're safe. When we lost contact, we assumed, where is the Silkfang?" Sarah gestured toward the unconscious predator. Mochi handled it. The silence that followed was profound. Dr. Helix floated closer, his ethereal form brightening with scientific curiosity as he scanned the defeated creature. Impossible. Our analysis indicated that Silkfangs have redundant nervous systems specifically to prevent this type of precise neural disruption. How could a simple Earth mammal possess the anatomical knowledge to— She didn't need anatomical knowledge, Sarah interrupted, reaching down to gently stroke Mochi's head. The cat paused in her grooming to purr contentedly, as if she hadn't just single-handedly resolved a station-wide crisis. She has something better, instinct, millions of years of evolutionary pressure that taught her ancestors exactly where to bite to bring down prey. Science Officer Click's mandibles clicked rapidly. But the size differential, the armor plating, the venom sacs— Cats hunt things bigger than themselves all the time, Sarah explained, watching as Mochi finished her grooming and settled into a comfortable loaf position, looking for all the world like any ordinary pet. They're ambush predators designed to take down prey through precision, not brute force. Size doesn't matter if you know where to strike. The assembled aliens stared at the small orange tabby, their understanding of Earth creatures undergoing a fundamental revision. Commander Veltar was the first to speak. Your pet. It defeated a Class A galactic predator and then began grooming itself? That's what cats do, Sarah said with a shrug. Hunt, eat, clean, nap. Mochi just did 3 out of 4. As if on cue, Mochi yawned, revealing the same sharp white teeth that had so casually dispatched a creature that had terrorized an entire space station. Then she closed her eyes and began to purr, the sound a gentle counterpoint to the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Dr. Helix's form pulsed with what Sarah had learned was equivalent to deep thought. We may need to reassess our understanding of Earth's biosphere if this is what you consider a harmless companion animal. Oh, Mochi's not harmless, Sarah corrected, gently scratching behind the cat's ears. She's just choosy about what she considers worth the effort. Apparently, alien predators threatening her human made the list. Ambassador Zethkar looked from the unconscious Silkfang to the contentedly purring cat and back again. Your species domesticated these creatures? Other way around, actually, Sarah smiled. They domesticated us. We just provide food, shelter, and the occasional chin scratch in exchange for protection from pests. Seems like a fair trade. As the station's crew worked to secure the unconscious Silkfang and return it to proper containment, the various alien dignitaries found themselves viewing their human colleague and her deceptively ordinary pet with entirely new eyes. The galaxy, it seemed, was full of creatures more dangerous than they appeared. Mochi, blissfully unaware of the paradigm shift she had caused, simply continued her nap, dreaming whatever dreams filled the minds of Earth's perfect predators as they dozed in patches of artificial starlight.